just so happens that they didn't leave. We don't know exactly why, but the fact that they decided to stay, well, God used that for a very big thing. The story of Esther begins at least 70 years earlier. And it begins when God was kind of fed up with the people of Israel. For hundreds of years, they had been worshiping false gods. They had rejected God. And so finally God said, enough is enough. I've got to discipline you. I'm sending you into captivity. And he said to his people, I'm sending you into captivity for 70 years. But after those 70 years are over, you'll be able to come back. When God finally came through on his word, and it's about 586 BC when it finally happens, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon destroys the city of Jerusalem, levels it to the ground, and takes the rest of the people into captivity in Babylon, what is modern-day Iraq. Nebuchadnezzar ruled for a while, and he had a few successors, and then after some time, the Persians came in, and they took over the Babylonian Empire. It's the Persian Empire now. And then during the course of time, a man named Nehemiah goes to the king, Cyrus, and he says, hey, O king, would you let some of us Israelites go back and rebuild our city of Jerusalem, put up the walls, put the temple back up? Would you allow us to do that? And he prayed to God that the king would agree. And the king agreed, and several waves of Israelites went back to the city of Jerusalem to rebuild the walls. The two people, among many, Mordecai and Esther, two cousins, they didn't go back. And we don't know why. Maybe we could just simply speculate for a moment. Well, maybe they were born in Persia. That's all they know. That's home. Why would they go back to a place they've never been to? That's not home. Persia is home. We're not going to speculate, though, because it doesn't matter. It just so happens that those two people, decided to stay in Persia and not go back. And then it just so happens in the course of time, King Xerxes, the Persian king, gets sick and tired of his queen, Vashti. He throws a party and he gets all drunk and he calls her in and she doesn't wear the thing he wants, and so he decides, I'm done with you. He gets rid of her. And then after some time, he decides he needs a new queen. And so he sends out an edict to the Persian Empire that all the most beautiful young ladies of the empire are to be taken to the capital city. They're to be given beauty treatments, good nutrition, and then whichever of those beautiful young women pleases King Xerxes, that's the lady he's going to choose to be his next queen. It just so happens that Esther is one of the beautiful young women sent to the capital city. She pleased the king, and she was chosen to be the next queen of Persia. About that same time, her cousin Mordecai was a low-level palace official. And it just so happens that he was on duty one night in the palace, and he walked down a corridor and he heard a conversation between two people that were plotting to assassinate King Xerxes. And so he took that information to Esther, who is the queen, and she told King Xerxes, and King Xerxes sent soldiers to have these two men executed immediately. And then, after a little while, a man named Haman was put in charge as the chief advisor to King Xerxes. Haman hated the Jews. He wanted to get rid of them. In fact, he wanted to exterminate them. And so he devised a plan in his mind. He was going to put together an edict and send it out to the entire Persian Empire, that on a certain day in the future, the Persians were to take up arms and kill their Jewish neighbors. And to get it signed, he took it to King Xerxes. He said, "O king, there is a group of people in your empire that neither honor you nor your empire. They do not worship you. They do not like you. You need to get rid of them." And Xerxes thought, that's a good idea. We don't need people like that around here. And so he signs the edict, and it's sent out for a particular day in the future when this edict of extermination of the people of God in the Persian Empire is going to happen. Mordecai hears about the verdict. He hears the edict. He hears it proclaimed, and he immediately goes to Esther, who just so happens to be a Jew, just so happens to be the queen of Persia. He goes to her and says, you need to do something. You have the ability. You have the opportunity to talk to King Xerxes and to reverse this horrible edict. We need you to do something, Esther. And this is Esther's response to her cousin Mordecai. Hatak went back and reported to Esther what Mordecai had said. Then she instructed him to say to Mordecai, all the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that they be put to death unless the king extends the golden scepter to them and spares their lives. 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king. We'll stop there. Esther knows she has the ability, but she doesn't think she has the opportunity. You see, the Persian king was considered a god on earth. And you just don't go waltzing into God's presence, right? If you're not summoned by him. And this is Esther's dilemma. She has not been summoned by the king for 30 days. He has not seen her. He has not talked to her. Because she has one purpose. We all know what that is. And she hasn't been called for that purpose. And she's scared that if she walks into his throne room without being summoned, and he doesn't extend that golden scepter to her, that her head's going to be chopped off. She's going to be executed. And then Mordecai says something to Esther, because he knows about all the "it just so happens." In fact, that phrase, "it just so happens," that I've used several times in the sermon, is found several times at the beginning and the middle and the end of the book of Esther. And Mordecai is going to explain to Esther now what that all means. It's not luck. It's not happenstance. It's not random. It's not chance. It's not just coincidence. Listen to what Mordecai says. He sent back this answer: "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this." Mordecai is saying the thing without saying the thing. All these things that have happened have led to this moment. Esther, who knows but that you are here in this position for this time, this opportunity to save your people? Who knows but that all these things that have happened up until now have led to this seminal moment when you have the opportunity to walk into the king's throne room and to be able to do something amazing, to actually save your people, save yourself from being killed. And so Esther does it. The way the story kind of, I'll let you read the rest of the book. It's only 5 chapters after this. But she goes in, and the king extends the golden scepter. She invites him to a party, and eventually she tells him what has gone on, what has happened, and he sends out an edict, and the plan is reversed. And the people of the Jewish people still celebrate Esther's bravery and her courage today, a festival called Purim. But it all hinges on that moment right there. Who knows but that you have been put in this place for just such a time as this? What Mordecai is saying is something that the Bible says all over the place. The Bible doesn't talk about luck, dumb luck, random chance, happenstance, coincidence. It talks about something much bigger. It talks about a God that we all believe in, who has a very big purpose to advance his kingdom and to save souls. And God doesn't leave that up to chance and randomness. In fact, this is what God says in the book of Acts, chapter 17, verses 26 to 27. This is the Apostle Paul. He's giving a sermon in the city of Athens. He says, "From one man, God made all the nations that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from any one of us." In other words, what Paul is saying to the Athenians and what he's saying to you and I It's no dumb luck that you find yourself a child of God today. The parents you were born to, the school you attended, the city you lived in, the job you had, the good things you experienced in life, the tragedies you went through, the disappointments you endured, and the successes that you went through, all of it, God is using all of it to guide you to Him. The seeking God who looks for us and finds us is working in and through all things so that His kingdom would advance, so that people would come to Him, so that He would find them and bring them to saving faith. It is no dumb luck, dear friends, that you are children of God today. That is all according to the plan of the Almighty God, who has literally moved in and through everything so that you would be His child. And now in your faith journey, you find yourself here as Living Stone Church. And who knows but that you have been brought here for just such a time as this. The history of our congregation for the last 7 years could really be summed up with these words. It just so happened. Let me take you back to 2018. In 2018, my family and I moved here to plant the church. And one of the first things you need to do as a pastor when you're planting a church is find a place to have church. It's kind of a thing pastors do, right? You got to have church. And so I searched. But when we moved out here in 2018, we lived out there in this northwest corner. There was a King Soopers out there, and there was a Starbucks, and some daycares, and that's it. And there were schools, and we went to the schools and asked, we rent. Nope, we don't want you here. Didn't want to open up the doors for us, didn't want to stay there, didn't want to lock up for us, nothing. It's May of 2019. We're supposed to start worship services in fall of 2019. Cutting a little close there. But it just so happens that my wife and I like to go to the Apex Center, which is on 72nd Street down here. In order for us to get from our house to the Apex Center, you got to drive down this road right here called Indiana. It just so happens that in Indiana, there's a little white church. And as we're driving by one day, my wife, I'm lamenting this to her about, I can't find anything. I was almost to the point, I kid you not, it was almost to the point where I was going to work part-time. I was going to take half of a salary from the church and work part-time as a janitor at Van Arsdale Elementary so that I could open the doors on Sunday morning. Because you have to have a janitor to open the doors. I was going to be a janitor to make sure we had a place. But she said, why don't you just, call up whoever the owner of that little white church is. I mean, it's a church after all. I'm trying to start a church. Ask him. Email, phone call later. October 6th, 2019, our first worship service, and ever since, has been at Ralston's Crossing Event Center. And one of the things we wanted to do when we started the worship service, we wanted to make sure we had live streaming. Because guess what? People get sick. And guess what? The other thing is, the online audience, the online world, I should say, that's the front door of your church. It's not the actual front door anymore. By the time people come through your front door, they've already looked at your front door. Your front door is the sermons, the videos, the services, the things that you're putting out there online, your website. That's your front door. And so we got to be out there. But we couldn't get it up and running. It had this beautiful, this really cute little camera, little microphone off the front, and a phone on a stand. And one of our members, after a couple months, said, Pastor, I'm going to take care of it. I will get that thing up and running. I'm going to make sure that we have live streaming for our worship services. January rolled around, February rolled around. We didn't have it yet, 2020. And then finally, at the end of the month, he said, I'll have it ready by the middle of March. So March 8th of 2020, there it was. He set it up. Got the little camera, little boom microphone on there, camera and the phone. We're up there in the little white chapel. We sent out the live stream, and it worked. Wow. And the next Sunday, half of our congregation was at home because there's a COVID virus roaming around. And March 22nd of 2020, no more in-person services. But it just so happened that 2 weeks prior, we had our live stream up and running. And so on March 21st, a group of 10 of us went into that little white chapel and we recorded the service on that little bitty camera with the boom mic and the phone on the stand. And we sent out the worship service on YouTube to our congregation, to West Arvada, and people found us because of that. And then June 2020 rolls around, and we're able to have in-person services with more than just 10. But if you've ever been in that little white chapel and you're supposed to social distance 6 feet apart, and if you've ever walked in there and there's a group of 40 or 50 people in there, there's no way to social distance. Plus, it's very tight and enclosed. But back in May of 2019, when we were looking at this place and we were renting it, somebody had the crazy idea. He said, you know what we could do in the summer sometime? We could have an outdoor service. Wouldn't that be cool? We could have like an outdoor service in the summer and we could invite people. You see, it just so happens that Ralston's Crossing Event Center doesn't just have a little chapel up there. They also have an event center. And so in June of 2020, we rolled up the doors, we set up the chairs. The pastor was on that side at that time. It was much warmer over there, by the way, for me. Because the best way to not get a virus is to be in the open air, right? And so we opened up the doors because, and since June of 2020, we have been in this room, Ralston's Crossing Event Center. About 2021, we decided to start looking for a permanent home. Right? Not really any places around here you could buy and renovate and retool. And so it's going to be a piece of property. We've got to buy a piece of property. Found a few options and so on. And about that same time, several families had been joining our congregation, and they were asking me about a vision of our congregation. What does it mean to be a church plant? You know, like, do you have a permanent, a long-term plan in place? And like, yeah, this is kind of what we're thinking. Here's a piece of property. And those several families said to me, Pastor, we'd like to make that happen. We have the means to make a land purchase happen. It just so happened that at the time we were looking, God blessed us with people who could actually make that happen. And then we went to put an offer in on this piece of property. There's a little bit of a problem, though. At one time, that property that we now own had been under contract with another church that has since disbanded. But in the course of their contract with this church, they had kept asking the owners for extension. Can you give us another 15 days, another 30 days? They've been dragging them on. And finally, the family just said, your financing's not good. It's not in place. We're pulling the plug. And they pulled it away. And they pulled the property off market. And they said, we're going to rezone it to something commercial. And we're going to get buku bucks for it. And we had kept in contact. One of our members knew the owners and said, would you accept an off-market offer? Sure. And they did. They accepted it. They said when they signed the contract, in order for us to sign this contract, in order for this to go through, you have to do all of your due diligence in 30 days. And what that means is you have to get an environmental study done to make sure there's no weird stuff under the ground. You have to do a geotech report to make sure that the land is buildable. You have to do a survey. You have to do all kinds of other things. You have to go through, have a lawyer look through the title commitments, click on all these hyperlinks to make sure that what you own is what you own, and anything that's encumbrance, all kinds of stuff, lots of hoops. Usually you get 60 to 90 days to do this. And they said, we want it done in 30. It just so happens that one of our members knows a surveyor who lives up in Coal Creek Canyon. He said, I'll be down there this week. I'll take care of it. It just so happens that one of our families has a brother-in-law who owns a geotech company. And while it was too big for what we needed, he said, I've got lots of contacts, and here's a small guy that small operation I really trust. He'll take care of it within a week. Environmental study came out, and guess what? Within 30 days, all taken care of. And then as we go through the design process and all this, it just so happens that God has blessed our congregation with people who know engineering and electricity and plumbing, things they don't teach you in seminary. They teach you about that know about project management in construction companies and so on, that know water rights. I grew up in Wisconsin. There's water all over the place. Get to Colorado, there ain't water. But you have to know about water rights. Do we have it? All this. And it just so happens that God blesses us with people with the knowledge and the time and the expertise to be able to do that. And then, end of 2025, I'm showing some of these spreadsheets and this inordinate amount of numbers and all the things and so on. This is what we got to do to make this project get off the ground. And somebody says, Pastor, I'm retiring at the end of this year, and I'm going to be in charge of the whole thing. Just so happens he's retiring exactly when we need somebody to retire and take charge of all this. On and on and on. It just so happened. I don't believe in a God of dumb luck, chance, randomness, coincidence. We believe in a God who is advancing his kingdom, who is saving souls and is maneuvering things and people and time and places to make that happen. And here we are on Celebration Sunday. It's not the end of anything. It's just another mile marker in the journey. It is. But who knows but that God has brought you here for just such a time as this? Who knows but that God has brought you here with the resources you have been blessed with through the course of your life to actually make this project a reality? Who knows but that God has brought you here because you have the wherewithal to work. You got a work ethic to paint and to spread gravel and to put bushes in ground and to do all the hard work that comes along with it. Who knows but that God has given you all that time you have in your life right now. You don't go a lot of places, but you got a lot of time so that you can wear out your knees praying that the county would continue to push the project through, praying that the contractor and the subcontractors would all be safe and that the project would come in under budget. Pray that our architects don't miss all those fine little details that are needed. Pray that the price of diesel would come down because you got to put that in bulldozers. And pray that it would all be done to the glory of God. Who knows but that God has brought you here for just such a time as this. Dear friends, it's such an amazing, amazing thing to be able to do God's work, to be his instruments, to be the ones that he uses with our time and our skills and our talents, resources, all of it, to the glory of his name. Who knows but that you have been brought to this moment for just such a time as this? Do you know who knows? God knows. God knows that you have been brought here for just such a time as this. And what a wonderful thing to celebrate that God gives us this opportunity with our time, with the skills and talents he has blessed us with, to be able to do this all to the glory of his name. God bless it all. Amen.